Weird sciencey facts that boggle my mind. One of the few crustaceans that's incapable of cruising around is one of the only crustaceans that can tell you where it's been. Barnacles start life as a larva looking for something to latch onto. But unlike other crustaceans, like their cousins the crab, they are sessile, which means when they find something to stick to, they stick around for life. So with the exception of the few lucky barnacles that bond to boats, these crusty crustaceans don't often get a change of scenery. And once they pick their place to permanently plot, they start growing a shell. And their shell has 6 plates. It grows in layers, 1 plate at a time. And like most other crustaceans, when their covering gets cramped, they've got to molt their shells. And scientists don't have any idea how they do this. See, most other crustaceans, whether it's crabs, lobsters, or zoidberg, have appendages. So they can remove themselves from their shells and leave that shell behind. But because barnacles are so grounded, they can't do that. So scientists speculate that maybe they have a chemical reaction that creates space inside their shell so they can grow the next plate and molt. But that's a guess. And it is crazy to me that they haven't been able to figure this out because it's not exactly like barnacles are running away from them. You think they'd be pretty easy to observe. But I'm not a marine biologist, so I'm not gonna question it. Anyway, because barnacles grow in layers, they offer insight into what their life's been like. Sort of like the rings in trees. You can tell when you had dry years and hot years and wet years. And just like trees, barnacles grow differently when they're exposed to different environments. But this seems like kind of useless information, right? Why would you need to study a barnacle to learn about the environmental conditions it grew up in when they don't move? You could just measure their environment. Well, I'm glad you asked, because the answer is really cool. Because while barnacles may not move, they do attach to things that do move. Mostly boats, which is usually just annoying for boat owners, but also debris, perhaps from a boat that stopped being a boat, or a Boeing doing Boeing things. Specifically, Malaysian Flight 370 that vanished somewhere in the Indian Ocean nearly a decade ago. Sadly, for the 239 people that vanished with the plane, their families have had no closure. But there's hope that that may soon change, because pieces of the plane have washed up on shore covered in, you guessed it, barnacles. And when some really smart people take a look at those barnacles, they'll be able to construct a map of where they've been. Their shells will have grown in very specific ways based on the temperatures and conditions in the places that wreckage was drifting through. And by studying the oldest barnacles on that debris, they will likely be able to narrow down where the wreckage originated. And the fact that a tale told by some barnacles could lead to more closure and a story about a lost plane than anything J.J. Abrams could write, well, that is pretty mind-boggling.